Hi, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. And my name is DeSutter. I am a Certified Soul Level Astrologer, and I am doing this live tonight to honor and celebrate the first of the 12 Holy Nights. The 12 Holy Nights are the period from the time of the birth of Christ to the when the wise men arrived. And there is a tradition within Rudolf Steiner's astrology, anthroposophy, where there's a celebration of the 12 Holy Nights. And Rudolf Steiner said that the winter solstice is the time when Spirit's rays shine most directly onto humanity. And it's also been said that that is why this time of year, this celebration, this very deep, very holy, very sacred time of year has been turned into a late capitalist ritual that has everyone running and spinning and stressed, because the more that we pay attention to all the things in the outer world, the less likely we are to turn our attention and our focus within and to tap into that connection, which is natural for each of us. And so over the last few years, I've started to explore paying attention to this time of year rather than having it be a time where I'm doing a lot and I'm being really busy, that I would take this time to slow down, to do some practices, to vision what I want for my following year, and to send my roots down into the soil so that I can really nurture and nourish myself during this quiet time and the dark time of the year and the sun, when we have, at least in the Western Hemisphere, it's the opposite in the Eastern Hemisphere, of course. Or is it northern and southern? Northern and southern hemisphere, pardon me. At least in the northern hemisphere of the earth, where the days are longer than the nights. We just had solstice a few days ago, and now the sun is returning, and the nights will begin to be longer than the days. So that said, today's Christmas, and I've just been relaxing and celebrating with a friend, and I haven't really done a lot of preparation for tonight. What I have for you tonight is a transcript from a class on the 12 Holy Nights from Ellias Lonsdale. Ellias Lonsdale is the progenitor of star genesis. He was my teacher's teacher. My teacher in soul level astrology is Mark Borax. And Mark Borax took star genesis, Ellias's, I wouldn't say it's Ellias's system, and yet he downloaded it. So however we want to talk about that. Mark took that system and made it his own and called it soul level astrology, because we put the soul before the astrology. So that said, what I'm going to do tonight is just simply read the transcript and see what else comes through about the first Holy Night. And then I'm hoping as these days go on that some of you might join, and I might know ahead of time that you're joining, and be able to include your charts and do chart activations for you. So if that's something that you're interested in, please put something in the chat and let me know, and I will be really happy to include you. So the 12 Holy Nights follow the 12 astrological zodiacal signs. So the first Holy Night is associated with the sign of Capricorn in the month of December. So on this Christmas night, we both review what was happening for us last year at this time, from around December 20th to January 20th approximately, and then we're going to look forward into what is happening from December 21st, 22nd of 2022 to January 20th, 21st, 22nd of 2023. So I'm working with a transcript from Ellias. I may bring in some things that I have to say about this too, and I may just keep it really short and sweet and simple tonight, because it's Christmas and it's been a big day for everyone, in whatever way it has been. So, in just a little more overview, so tomorrow we'll be doing I'll be doing Aquarius, and then on Tuesday it will be Pisces, and on Wednesday it will be Aries, and on Thursday it will be Taurus, and so on and so forth. So that's how this is going to go for the next, through January the 6th. So the first month, so now I'm beginning to read from the transcript from Ellias, and so I want to acknowledge Ellias, and I want to acknowledge his work and say thank you to him. This is from a class that he just taught here at the beginning of December, and I'm sharing his work. So here's what Ellias has to say. The first month of the new year, which is the month of Capricorn, from late December to fairly late January, the 20th to the 20th approximately, what happens in that month, as far as outstanding star events, that's what we're steering by here, we're steering by the stars, is that Mars, which is currently right now in the midst of being retrograde and has been retrograde for a while, going backwards supposedly through Gemini, Mars is going to go direct. It's going to have a transit station, shift direction during the month of Capricorn, and the degree that it's in is what's most important. We work intensely with these degrees, and we let them speak to us. And we do this in a mode that's profoundly connected. And so we have Mars going direct at 9 degrees Gemini on January 13th. And close in time to that, Mercury will be at 9 degrees retrograde in Capricorn on January 16th. And that crossroads is a powerful one, a good one to look at right now, because we're right in this Gemini stew here, and we might as well actually describe it rather than have astrologers give cliches about it, which everybody seems fascinated with, but then we don't learn anything. We don't evolve. We don't awaken through those cliches. So now this is Anne talking. I've been reading Elias's transcript. So Elias is making a little commentary here on the way that Western astrology is done. And what he's saying is that the way that Western astrologers tend to talk about astrology is done in a cliche form that sounds good and maybe even looks good on the surface, but actually doesn't allow us to transform. And so he's setting us up to say, I'm about ready to take us somewhere. And he goes on to say, well, we just say, well, Gemini is going to be Gemini, and boys will be boys, and girls will be girls, and everybody will do whatever they do in the world that's dying off and has no hope and no faith and no conviction, because it's always being dialed into the old, the past, and has nothing going for it except its memories and its yearnings and its sense that nothing ever happens around here, because we keep aligning with the same thought forms and the same ideas that have been with us forever and that we need to let go of to move onward. And so here we go. We're going to start with Mars in Gemini. The Chandra symbol for 9 degrees Gemini is wildflowers growing by the ruins of an ancient temple. Wildflowers growing by the ruins of an ancient temple. Mars just loves these wildflowers. From a Mars place, from a deep body place, those wildflowers are just tremendous because we can't rule them. We can't tame them. We can't keep them in our mind's eye. We can't turn them into our ego food. They're more than anything we've ever seen before. That's what happens when wildflowers bloom by the ruins of an ancient temple. We know the ancient temple. We've been there forever. But we don't know the wildflowers. We haven't been in these wildflowers before, because when they rise spontaneously. They rise from a deep instinct in the earth. They come up from below. They take us on a journey, and we don't know where it's going to go. And that's exactly the way it needs to be. So the wildflowers that are growing are our future capabilities, our future possibilities, our future visions, our future drives, our future dreams. and they are growing everywhere. Why by the ruins of an ancient temple? Because what remains from the great past, the real past, what remains is ruins. Now, if you've been visiting ruins in all these places of the world where they have ruins, you will know that they have a resonance to them, a power to them, an intensity, an intense reality to them. They're not just ruins. They're the living remembrance, the Akashic recollection of all that went on there long ago. And so, when these wildflowers bloom there, they're blooming from that inspiration, from that remembered stream. And so, what we have here is a future that honors a past, a future that awakens right in the midst of the past, and that doesn't have dualistic problems with the past, future, this, that, because the wildflowers are an integral part of the temple, and the temple is an integral part of the wildflowers, and everything is connected. And so, we move with it, and we don't get stuck on all the ways that we have felt under attack. We have felt in conflict with ourselves and each other. We have felt this Mars energy sort of running us fast and strong, and now the Mars energy, when it goes direct, says, okay, time to reap the lessons you've been learning. Time to remember that you know the way through and beyond, and that the wildflowers will take you there. So I'm just going to pause for a second and say something about what he just said here. So this is Anne talking now, not Ellias. He's saying that Mars is saying to us, Mars has been retrograding, once Mars goes direct, that all the lessons that we've been reaping and learning during this period of Mars retrograde, now we get to reap what we've sown and what we've been learning during this time. And it's time to remember that we know the way through and beyond, and that the wildflowers will take you there. And what a really interesting image to imagine that wildflowers are what's going to take us through this learning curve that we're in. So just feel into that for a moment and imagine that inside of your mind's eye, and inside of your being, and inside of your body. So, and then Mercury goes direct close to the same time, while Mars is still retrograde in that 9-degree frequency. And Mars was one thing, but then here comes Mercury. And Mercury going to retrograde in the aspect that all of us are so afraid of. And he's talking about Mars retrograde. So you're about ready, this is Anne talking, and you're about ready to get a very different perspective on Mars Mercury retrograde than what you've heard before. So listen, and just, if we can all have Zen mind, beginner's mind with this one for a minute, and think that we don't really know or understand what Mercury retrograde is, I think you're going to find this to be quite interesting. I know it piqued my curiosity when I was looking at this transcript and preparing for tonight. He says, we're also afraid of Mercury going retrograde, and this is Ellias speaking again, because it means we will be disrupted in our business as usual, and we will be compelled to take things further and not just go on automatic pilot. What happens when we deal with 9 degrees Capricorn, which is by Chandra symbol, a woman washes a man's feet and dries them with her hair. A woman washes a man's feet and dries them with her hair. Yeah, it's a very great degree of the zodiac, a very considerable, powerful, brilliant, beautiful degree of the zodiac. Perfect for Mercury going retrograde in that degree. What does it mean? It means that in January we get the chance to start the year of the number 7, the year of 2023. So this is Anne speaking again, 2023 is a 7 year. How we get the number of the years is numerology. We added up 2 and 2 is 4 plus 3 is 7. So 2023 is going to be a 7 year. We get the chance to start the year of the number 7. This is Ellias speaking again. The year of 2023 with a devotion a dedication, a commitment, a willingness to give ourselves over to what? To wash these feet. And to what these feet are walking toward. These feet are walking toward the future. We're washing the feet of the Christ before Mary Magdalene, and are allowing everything that he's about to go through in the crucifixion, in the descent into hell, in the resurrection that we went into. I'm sorry, he's referring to another class. He's talking about another class where he went into the resurrection very significantly. So he's going to talk about that a little bit here. He says all of those stages, Mary Magdalene tunes into them through those feet. And she's telling Christ that she's with him, that she will walk with him throughout his journey. And she's saying, when she dries them with her hair, she's saying that everything, she's emptying out her consciousness, emptying out her mercurial curiosity and fascination with the outer phenomenon, and going with her direct experience vibrationally of what those feet are telling her. And what those feet are telling her is that we're going on a different journey this year. We're going on a Grail quest. And the Grail quest is to take the very thing that you agreed to before birth, the very thing that you are meant to do in this lifetime. It's to take that journey, especially as conditions on the outside make it impossible, inconceivable, and conditions on the inside are certainly not optimal either. We do it, the it being this journey that he's referring to, that each individual soul is here to take. We do it not because it can be done, but because it must be done. But the must in this case is not a religious obligation. Guilt and shame, patriarchal religion must. It's a must that comes from our deep instinct for which way is forward from here. How can we stay with the energies? How can we kind of go with the further ripples of Mercury and not just be caught up in the outer mind and its compulsions? So it's a moment when the world that we are meant to be, part of us. Okay, I just am seeing a note here that says somebody's trying to listen, but there's a weird hissing in the background that makes it tricky. Thank you, Gemma, for telling me that. You know what I need to do? I think it's the fan from my computer, and I need to put a headset on. Do you have a headset? Sorry, I've got a friend here. Do you have a headset that can plug into my computer? I have one upstairs, so and Gemma, I'm going to ask you if you're still listening. I'm going to come a little closer. Can you hear me better right now if I'm closer until I get the headset plugged in? Or anybody that's listening. And I know it's Christmas night, so most people are going to watch this later. I'm just asking for a little feedback to see how the sound is. I'm pretty sure it's because the fan is running on my computer and it's making sound. And that's the issue. And I could just start over again, but I really don't want to. Okay, Josie just said it's better. Thank you so much, Josie. I'm about ready to get a headset plugged in, and I'm going to rewind this last part a little bit because it's really important. And let's see if this helps. Right ear. Right ear. And left ear. Better when I'm closer. Thank you so much. This is the first night out of the gate, so we're going to get this in order here. Okay, how is that with the headset when I'm leaning back? Can you hear me okay, or is it still better when I'm just closer? Yes, it's better. Okay, great. So just put a comment in if you can't hear me or if you're having a hard time hearing. So I'm just going to rewind here a little bit because this piece is really important. So Ellias is saying that what we're having happen with Mercury going retrograde at 9 degrees Capricorn is we're going on a Grail quest. And the degree, the name of the degree, the Chandra symbol for 9 degrees Capricorn, where Mercury is going retrograde in January is a woman washes a man's feet and dries them with her hair. And he's referring, of course, to Mary Magdalene in this because that's the most famous example that we all have, archetypal example. Okay, much better. Thank you, Josie. Um, of a woman, um, washing and drying a man's feet with her hair. And so I'm going to rewind just a little bit so that this part is clear. So he's saying that what the feet are telling her as she's drying his feet is that we're going on a different journey this year and that we're going on a grail quest. And the grail quest is to take the very thing that you agreed to before birth, the very thing that you are meant to do in this lifetime, that you, this is Anne talking, and what I mean is I'm meaning you, anyone who's listening to this means you. Not, it's not like a random you, it's each of us as individual souls. And every single one of us has something that we came to do here this time. Okay, to take the very thing that you agreed to before birth, the very thing that you are meant to do in this lifetime, it's to take that journey, especially as conditions on the outside make it impossible, inconceivable, and conditions on the inside are certainly not optimal either. We do it not because it can be done, but because it must be done. But the must in this case is not a religious obligation, guilt and shame, patriarchal religion must. It's a must that comes from our deep instinct for which way is forward from here. How can we stay with the energies? How can we kind of go with the further ripples of Mercury and not just get caught up in the outer mind and the compulsions? So it's a moment when the world that we are meant to be part of calls us through, but calls us so directly that we have to wash the feet of He who is us. And really, if you're going to wash those feet, as you know from your own dedications, your own meditations, your own prayers, your own internal contemplative times, you know that when you wash the feet, in other words, when you enter the energy and give of yourself to the energy and let it show you and let it show you, and you don't impose anything from your past mental record, when you do that, you know that what comes is just exactly what's meant to come. I'm just going to pause for a moment here and parse this and just say, like, most of us can't even conceive of what it would be like to do anything without doing it from our past mental record, right? We're so attuned in this world of time that mankind has created to past and present and future, and we're dragging our past along with us with every single thing that we do, that even that idea that we're going to enter into this space, to this contemplative space, without any sense of our past or our history, like, wow, let's just imagine what it might be like to do that, right? Okay. So I'm going to rewind a second. He says, and let it show you when you enter the energy and give of yourself to the energy and let it show you, and you don't impose anything from your past mental record, when you do that, you know that what comes is exactly what's meant to come. And that's the revelation, that if you're there, it's there. If we're there, it's there. If you're with it, it's with you. If you're with the living spirit turns out to be just waiting for you to say that, to show that. And then Ellias goes on to share a little bit personally. And he says, I was in a moment in the past few days and nights where one of my most faithful helpers had just spoken these amazing indications about the first 4 holy nights preparing for this moment. And I just couldn't stand it any longer. I had to say to her how much I appreciated what she was offering me and describing how I perceived her as I never had before. And suddenly the energy shifted and everything was different. And I realized that there's always a part of me, and this is Ellias speaking again for anybody who's just tuning in this moment. I'm reading a transcript from the astrologer Ellias Lonsdale. And I realized that there's always a part of me that doesn't want to say it and doesn't want to do it. And you know, we all have a part of us that doesn't want to say it and doesn't want to do it. This is Anne talking. I have that. And in fact, I often know that I need to speak something because I have this thing happen where my heart starts to race in my chest. And sometimes I hear this like kind of rushing sound in my ears. And I know that even though I don't want to speak something, that's how I know I have to say it out loud. And I usually feel fairly afraid when that happens. And I've had enough experience of doing that over and over again that I have faith in it. And when that comes, I say what I need to say anyway. And yet there's this like kind of eye of the needle I have to go through each time. So Elias says, there's a part of me that doesn't want to say it and doesn't want to do it. And you know, we all have a part of us that doesn't want to say it and doesn't want to do it, that wants to say that we couldn't say it and we couldn't do it because of this and because of that. And we had good reasons and good excuses. And he says, and I always have great excuses, really great reasons not to say it and not to do it. And this is Anne speaking, don't we all? And then he says, but I realized that when I say it out loud or say it inside with a great passion, that what I'm saying is my heart's knowing, and that does get transmitted. That's the faith that I bring also to these 3 sessions of this class tonight, next night, and the next night, is that you will hear me because I'm speaking from the heart. I'm not telling you what I know. I'm not telling you what I think. I'm not telling you what I've always known and always thought. I'm sharing with you what comes to me when I let go of all my notions about what I know and who I am and who I'm not. And the Mary Magdalene in me, you could say, really wants to love the Christ and wants to bring the new energy through and wants to do anything and everything she possibly can and more than that to make sure it happens. And she's been so frustrated by the extent to which the human mentality, the group mind, is so used to it now, so mechanical, so used to it, always used to everything. It's all just the way it's been and the machine goes on. And she's frustrated by that. The Mary Magdalene in me wants the Christ encounter to believe and to be live, not traditional or wishful, or it could be, or it should be, but direct, energetic connection. What Mercury retrograde actually wants to do every time it happens. So tune your ears in here because the amazing astrologer, the wizard Ellias Lonsdale, is about ready to tell us what Mercury retrograde is up to. Instead of all of this, pardon me, this is Anne speaking, all of this ridiculous bullshit that we hear all the time. That's just like palm face, right? And there is some truth to all of that. So I don't want to just be negative about it. And so much of it is just silliness. Okay, so here we go. Here's Mercury retrograde. What Mercury retrograde wants to do, what it always wants to do, is to interrupt the program, to interrupt the imposed conditioning, to interrupt the regular business as usual syndrome, and to bring into play all these elements that would never come up if we just stayed brain dead and so convinced of our own ego world and our own karmic patterns. So this is Anne talking right there. This is why there's so much bullshit about Mercury retrograde, because what Mercury retrograde wants to do is interrupt
all of our bullshit of how we're doing it in an everyday kind of mechanical way. Here we go. And then Mercury retrograde comes and everybody goes, I can't keep going the way I'm used to doing it. What am I going to do? The sky is falling. The sky is falling. Right? So, yay for Mercury retrograde for interrupting the program. And so, that was Anne talking. Now we're back to Ellias. And so, every Mercury retrograde is really the opportunity for us to think differently, feel differently, and act differently. And this is Anne again. Oh my God, isn't that just so refreshing? Every Mercury retrograde is really the opportunity for us to think differently, feel differently, and act differently. Hallelujah. But it involves, back to Ellias, as in this one, prototypically in January, it involves the need to remember that somebody in you knows how to wash those feet. Somebody in you knows how to wash those feet. And that remembrance is in your body everywhere, every part of you. It's in your hair, it's in your feet, it's in everywhere in between. So this is Anne, and this is inspiring me to share about something that happened when I was in my 20s. I was back in my kind of more witchy pagan days, I guess I would say, and I was at a festival, and we were doing some really profound, powerful group ritual. To the purpose of the ritual, the intention behind it was to crown ourselves in our sovereignty. And I was doing the first station of the ritual. As you came in, there were different stations that you went through. And the station I was doing was the washing of the feet. And I had such a profound experience. I was so sincere in my desire to really live into that archetype of Mary Magdalene and wash people's feet. And I was wearing this like very thin white veil. And so nobody knew or recognized me. And I went so deeply into that archetype that something actually happened, like something else in that archetype took me over in that experience of washing people's feet. That there was this, I think it was one of the first times in my life I experienced devotion. That's the word I would say. I experienced what it was to know devotion, to just give myself over completely to what I was doing in that moment. And I so totally experienced that, and I so totally transformed and had that happen, and I felt it in my body. I felt this light like come into my body and be given to these people. And I was washing their feet with water, but I was washing their feet with light was really what was happening, because I was being so present and something was coming through me. That literally the next day, like I heard people were like cooking or washing their dishes in the campsite next to me, and they're like, who was that washing our feet last night? They didn't even recognize me. They didn't even know that it was this person, this body named Anne, because I let this feeling of this devotion take me over so completely. So I've had an experience of what that is in my past, and I'm really curious to know, like, well, what will that be like now? Like, what is that in this moment to feel that feeling of washing anyone else's feet? What to speak of to wash my own feet? And with that kind of love, with that kind of devotion, that I lose all track of what anything else is but that moment of actually washing feet. So I'm going to go back to the transcript with Ellias here. He says, and so you're a living, breathing, pulsing evolutionary power, and nothing in you is just automatically a given, programmed in by the elite or whoever's programming everybody these days. I'm going to read that sentence again because it's a powerful one. And so you are a living, breathing, pulsing evolutionary power, and nothing in you is just automatically a given, programmed by the elite or whoever's programming everybody these days. And Mercury retrograde, let's call it Mercury recovering. Mercury recovering from all the direct bombardment of energies that keeps our mind so hyper and so manic and so rajasic, that recovery goes deep and it takes us further. So this is Anne talking, and so he's giving us a clue about how to approach this Mercury retrograde and how to approach any Mercury retrograde. Is when Mercury goes retrograde, this is a time to be able to like let go of that sense of being bombarded and manic and just like the everything that's happening all the time. I mean, there's so much coming at us all the time, every single day of our lives, right? And then he says, it tells us that, boy, we have a dedication, a devotion, a commitment, a consecration to do here. When Capricorn gets into that mode, it's the most contemplatively pure of all the signs. Capricorn is the most contemplatively pure of all the signs. And this is Anne talking. So if you think about that, Capricorn happens right after the winter solstice through early January. And so this is like the time of the year when we're sending our roots down into the soil, when we're supposed to be slowing down, when we're meant to be hibernating right now. And that's why, he's referring to Capricorn as the most deeply contemplative sign. Also because the sigil of Capricorn, the original sigil, is not a mountain goat, it's a sea goat. And what the sea goat does is the sea goat actually has to descend all the way through the depths of all of the rock, the sand, the soil, the water, all the way down below the ocean, below, the sea goat is in the ocean, below the ocean, down into the depths of the deep earth crust, in order to be able to ascend to the top of the mountain. It's like the Rumi poem that your roots will be shaken and they're clinging to the soil and to the heights of their quiver of the tenderest branches that are quivering in the wind, right? And so that's the sign of Capricorn, to have that level, that depth of contemplative capacity to descend all the way down, because the only way that Capricorn can ascend is if it descends all the way down, then it gains the momentum and the capacity to ascend all the way up to the top of the mountain. And there is, in this degree of 9 degrees Capricorn, there's sort of a magic formula. Sorry, I stumbled over my words there for a second. So when Capricorn gets into that mode, it's the most contemplatively pure of all the signs. And there is, in this degree of 9 degrees Capricorn, there's sort of a magic formula almost for how we proceed in a world that's not at the mercy of the program. How do we proceed? How do we find the magic formula that helps us to proceed in a world that's not at the mercy of the program? And how we proceed is we follow what our deeper third chakra, that's your solar plexus, that's your belly button, what our deeper third chakra knowingness tells us. We do what we must, not what is convenient and comfortable, and of course, status, convenience, stability, security, but what actually tunes us up, what actually challenges us to go further now. And so, you put together both of these nines, the Mars 9 and the Mercury 9 for the first holy night, and you find that we have a tremendous opportunity in the new year, as we'll see in just a minute. And he's referring to tomorrow's holy night, where we're going to talk about the year of the cat. Just a little preview. We're finishing up the year of the water tiger. When the moon shifts in January, towards the end of January, we're going to go into the year of the water cat. So tomorrow night's holy night is going to be mostly about the year of the water cat, just so that you have a little preview for tomorrow. So we have a tremendous opportunity in the new year to do things differently and think differently and do everything from a whole new place. And so we sort of try that on for size in January, where it's still in the year of the tiger, while we're still in the world that we've created out of the past before the month of Aquarius, coming right up in just a second, brings us to a whole other place. The place that we absolutely must be in, the place that all of everybody is carrying us toward. So that's the completion of this first holy night. And I welcome all of you to this journey of the holy nights. I am being really receptive to how this journey wants to go. I welcome your comments. I welcome your suggestions. And I also welcome those of you, I'm going to be doing this at some point every day through January the 6th. I welcome you, those of you that want to take a deeper dive, to get in touch with me and let me know that you would like to do that. And I can add your chart into the mix and see what we're going to be doing on each holy night is looking at the major astrological event that's correlating to that sign for that month of the year. And so to look and see where your chart's going to be getting really activated and what's going to be stirring in your soul, I would love to be able to have some of that kind of interplay. And I am wishing you all a very happy holiday. And I look forward to being with you over these next few nights. And have a wonderful rest of your evening. And thank you so much for joining me. Good night.